Creek olives and limes. Today we're going to take you on a bit of a tour of the lime grove, and we'll move through a few of the olive trees as well. This is a working farm, guys, so I do need to make sure that you are mindful of any trip hazards, wildlife. There are a few snakes in the grove, plenty of spiders. We've been on a couple of tours this morning, so I'm pretty sure the snakes are all gone. Okay, my name is Jody Mann and this is Anthony. We are family of Bernie. Okay, so we do this for the love. This farm here, the first settlers came over in 1842, and this district was actually a logging district. And then the Manns came in the mid 1800s and they settled here. We are now 6th generation and our children are 7th generation to these properties. In our grandfather's day, he was actually a dairy producer, so he provided milk to Ipswich City, where they churned it and made butter for the district. Okay, so we're going to move down just to where the truck is down there, and we'll have a bit of a chat about the process of the limes. Okay, at the back there I have got a loud voice. I'm a man, we're known for that. Alright, here at Water Cress Creek, we grow Tahitian limes. The reason we grow Tahitian limes is they will fruit all year round. So a Tahitian lime is actually grown onto bush lemon or orange rootstock. Okay, it makes them very hardy. Also, they're very water resilient, and they seem to really thrive in these Australian conditions. Okay. We have trees that are ranging from a couple of years old to 20 years old in the lime grove. In the olive trees, some of them are up to 30 years old. Okay, so with the Tahitian limes, like I said, they will fruit all year round. In the off season, sometimes they produce a smaller fruit, which is fine. They just keep producing. So we do pick and pack all year round. So with the picking and packing process, we come down and we use the trusty old farm ute with no brakes, mind you, so it's a traditional farm ute. So for stopping purposes, you head towards a tree. Okay, so the guys put on their picking baskets. We'll have a look at them in a minute. They put on their picking baskets and then they move through the trees. Anthony here does the majority of the pruning on the farm, so he does try and keep them at a height that's reachable for us to pick easily. Once you do start reaching into those trees though, they've got a lot of thorns. So after a picking day, the guys will come back bleeding head to toe from the trees. There's actually nothing you can do about that. It'll even punch your gloves. Okay, here's Anthony with his trusty picking bag. We can fit about 10 to 15 kilos depending on how strong we're feeling on the day. Okay, we fill up the bags, we dump them into the crates, we take them up to the shed, and we'll show you the packing and processing at the end of the tour. So we might walk through the grove now and we'll just have a look at a few different things on the actual trees themselves. Okay, so watch your step. Our trees here, the Tahitian lime, it is vulnerable to a few pests. We do get a red scale and a black scale that grows on the trees. We actually don't do much about that at all. It will affect the fruit, but only the skin only. So once we wash them, that scale will actually come off. So we tried to minimize the amount of pesticides we're actually putting on the plants, because we do want to encourage those bees to come in and do their good work on our flowers. The good thing about a Tahitian lime is with a flower bunch, you won't just get one fruit, you can get multiple fruit. We have found bunches up to 10 to 15 fruit on one little bunch. There's one just behind your head there.
Oh, look at them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the fruit, they will do multiple fruit out of their flowering programs. So we don't knock down the spiders. You can see quite a few overhead at the moment, a few spiders. There's a big one at the end there, watch that one, big golden orb. We're hoping that they're going to take care of those nasty bugs that we really don't want in the grove. With Water Cress Creek limes, we try to minimize any wastage. So any green sizable fruit will be picked off the tree, but if there's any yellow fruit that have not dropped to the ground yet, the guys will pick that and they will juice it. The yellow limes actually are a lot more juicier than the green ones. So a lime will come out green, okay, and as it's turning, then it'll go yellow. Okay, so this one here would probably be a premium sized lime. That's what we're looking for there. But they do get mighty big if we leave them on the trees. Now, if you look at your feet, there is a fair bit of yellow on the ground. We don't waste that either. That'll actually be mulched back into the garden beds here and will be fertilizer for the trees. Okay? All right, we'll move through. Watch our big golden orb spider.
There's that spider.
With a red spot.
Excellent. Found me a red spot.
And red spot on the leaf.
Okay, so these are the pests we're talking about that affect our Water Cress Creek limes. All right, so we've got the scale here and the spot. Okay, yes, it'll affect the tree and it looks terrible. But with the fruit, it'll actually just wipe off. It does not affect the fruit at all, and it'll come up clean and looking beautiful. So we really don't do a great deal about that one. Okay, this one's been stung by a wasp. All right, this fruit will be wasted, unfortunately. There's nothing we can do with that. When we cut it open, it will actually affect the fruit inside, and it's gone all brown.
Can you still juice it?
It actually creates a bit of a bitter juice, and it doesn't last as long either.
Yeah.
We have tried eating them ourselves, like, you know, I'm desperate on the weekend for my margarita and I'll use them. But yeah, it is a much bitter sort of taste, so yeah, they're not really good for much at all. We sort of just will mulch anything affected by that wasp.
Does that happen very much?
Yeah, it is quite common. Yeah, it is quite common. But like I said, we're trying to minimise the amount of herbicides we are putting on these fruit. And as you can see with the amount of yellow on the ground, there is always going to be wastage. So we're just going to have to take that into account. And we do save all of the beautiful yellow ones for the juice that haven't been affected by a wasp. Generally speaking, once one of those limes have hit the ground, they're going to start rotting almost immediately. So we leave them on the ground and we mulch them in for fertiliser. Anthony, did you want to talk about the irrigation?
Yes, so we've got some modern farming practices going on where every tree has its own irrigation pipe. So that saves us money, stops wastage, and we also have liquid fertiliser we can run through the lines. So that will also eliminate wastage of fertiliser and allow us to accurately give each tree a measured quantity of fertiliser, and that also reduces any sort of chance of pollution when you bulk fertilising an area for one of those giant spray booms. You will get wastage and you will get runoff, but here each tree will drink its own quantity. And we have Water Cress Creek that does run at the bottom of the property, so we want to sort of look after that waterway when it's flowing, so we do that type of fertilisation. Like Jodie was saying, we only minimal spray when we need to. If a tree is covered in red spot, if the leaves are completely covered, it will die because it can't breathe through the leaves. So that's when we'll spray it to save the tree, but it's a selective spray on that tree only, and probably the ones around it, because red spot can trouble and black spot. So we selectively spray for them using minimal quantities. We've got the she oaks growing around the place. So when we're spraying, she oaks are a good natural wind break, that's the word I'm after. So that we've got to pick the right time of day to spray. We've got to pick, you know, the right conditions to spray. So we really will do it only if necessary, which is good for the environment as well and for our health too.
Where does the spots come from? Like how do they get spots?
It's just a bug.
It's just a
same as the wasps and the fruit fly and that. It just travels, and in summer it's a bit more rampant because of the conditions are right. In winter, you know, the red spot's still there, but it's just not as aggressive.
Are the wasps laying in it or laying eggs in it?
Yeah, the fruit fly will lay an egg, and the wasp.
That was the stung one I cut open before. That's obviously had a wasp go into it. Yeah.
Okay. So
What percentage of your crop would you lose to wastage like that?
It'd be a few, I'd say 5%. Yeah. So, but it's an acceptable loss because if we spray to kill all the bugs, then we're killing all the good bugs like the native bees and the European honeybee that do us a favour too. So we've really got to be careful. We don't want to disrupt that. And we've got good bugs that eat bad bugs, so we try and encourage that. But at some point, if it gets beyond, you know, nature's control, we step in. But that's something it's done.
Certain wasps, how's that affecting the bees? Because the wasps tend to kill bees?
It's very minimal. When in spring and summer, it's that noisy down here with the bees humming. It is ridiculous.
Yeah,
You can
it's
hear it from the
crazy.
house. It's just a hum. It's like, what is that? And it's the grove humming with the bees. There is white everywhere. Because not every flower survives, so the trees will drop what they need to. So it's almost like it's snowed here sometimes. Ground's white, trees are white, then the place is humming. It's amazing. It's a really good time to
There's
see.
probably, off the top of my head, I can think of 4 beekeepers just in this immediate district. So there's plenty of people keeping our bee stock coming
Billy's
in.
got a couple of boxes over the
Yeah.
back, and there's a couple near the Pine Mountain Hall.
Near the hall,
as well,
yeah.
So.
The water for the olives and limes is actually coming from the Brisbane River. Bernie's pumping that in some pipes under the ground through his brothers and sisters' multiple properties. It's actually 2 kilometres away, so that water is being brought here for 2 kilometres. Like Anthony said, we do have Water Cress Creek just down below there, but we want that to keep running. We want that to have water in it, you know, for the wildlife and for the future. So yeah, Bernie actually draws all of his water from the Brisbane River. And like Anthony said, we try and be very water saving. In this day and age, every drop of water you pay for, so the less we use, the better. So even though he is pumping it from the river, it does come at a cost. Yeah. Okay, well, we might move up the hill a little bit more.
Firstly,
Yes.
I have been here before, and there was something said about it having to be treated. Is that right?
It's filtered because when we're pumping it up, there's the initial filters on the pump because there's a lot of sediment in the river because it's a flowing river. And there's all, especially after a big rain and they open the dam, there's so much silt. We've got to go in. There's submersible pumps, so we put in some swimmers and we go down and we clean the filters out there. And then we've got the 2 kilometres of pipe to the bottom shed. In that bottom shed, we've got large filtration devices that will take all the finer sediment out. Because if we don't filter that, then all the sprayers will block up. So maybe that's what they were talking about, the treatment. We don't actually treat the
We
water
don't
with
put a
anything
chemical in it, no.
other than the fertiliser, which we selectively add when it's required. You will look at the trees, and if the leaves are starting to go yellow or wilter a little bit, then it's no ad. Or if it's coming into spring when the trees really start to flower and fruit, then we might give them a hit of fertiliser so that will grow into a healthy crop and not sort of take all the nutrients out of the tree and possibly harm it. Now, in some of these trees, on a very hot, dry day, these trees can actually expire up to about 75 litres of water. So that's drawing moisture out of the ground up to the tree, keeping it nice and green and luscious, and then just disappearing into the atmosphere.
Is that each tree?
Yeah, up to 75 litres, depending on the size of the tree and the foliage and the fruit. So it might not be that quantity all the time. Like this smaller trio might only be 20 to 30. But if we have about a 3 or 4 day hot, dry period, these trees, the leaves will start to curl over and they'll become quite thirsty and dry and they'll almost shrivel up a bit. So we run those pumps quite a lot to keep these thirsty buggers healthy. And those pumps, they're pumping a lot of water, 2 kilometres, so they draw a lot of power as well. So we've got solar up on the roof to try and offset that as well.
We just want to all move into the shade here a bit, guys. It's very hot today.
Catch some shade. Everyone's going to get enough vitamin D today. It's a beautiful day. Light breeze, just takes the edge off.
Yeah, it's a nice breeze.
Alright, the first olive trees went in the ground back in '96. I think he started with about 10 and then they grew quite well and another 10 grew into 100, grew into 500, grew into about, we've got about 1,000 trees. 5 different varieties, so we've got Manzanellas, Arbequinas, Fronterios, Wild, and Calamatas. So these trees probably fruit once a year. March is picking season. If we haven't had a good season, then it's not bad on us. We just spend the time pruning them, making them look pretty, because if they're not fruiting, we've got to sort of diversify what we've got to do. So what we end up doing is we've got beautiful olive trees that we can trim little bits off and supply to wedding parties, that sort of thing, as table decorations. If we do heavy pruning, then we can offset pruning. We got some local wood turners that like to turn the olive wood into pens little name holders on desks, that sort of thing. So we try and do minimal wastage and make the most of what we've got. When we pick the olives, if we're picking for oil, we pick and process pretty much as soon as possible. We don't have a processing plant here, so we'll pick our olives, bucket them up and send them to Stanthorpe. I think that's when they get pressed into oil. If we're picking for consumption, we'll pick and then we'll bucket them up in fresh water. We do a freshwater rinse every day for about 3 weeks. So it's a bit of wastage of water there, but that draws a lot of the nasties out of the olives because they're not the nicest things to eat straight off the tree. Once that sort of 3-week period's over, we then put them in a brine, a salt water brine, and then they can be preserved in that for as long as we need. And then during that time, we'll decide what we're going to do. We might be making a bruschetta spread or something like that. So we've got the tapenade machine. We'll put a bucket of them through the tapenade machine. It squashes the olives down, spits out the seeds and gives us a nice chunky paste that we can turn into our bruschetta spreads. And what else is good?
A little bit of an interesting fact about olive timber. Olive timber will actually burn 2 times hotter than any other wood in the world. So I would suggest if someone gives you a bit of olive timber, do not put it in your fireplace. It will glow red hot and probably burn your roof. Learned that one the hard way, guys. Yeah, so if you're putting it in your fire pit outside and stuff like that, you will have to stand right back. It is a very, very hot timber to burn just due to its oil content. So I'd never suggest grabbing any clippings or anything for your fireplace, guys. It can be quite dangerous. I'm the local fire warden here, and Bernie's asked me to do a couple of burn-offs, so I tell him there's no way. Okay, we are not coming to help you if your olive grove is on fire. But of course we will try from a distance.
Aerial.
Aerial, yeah. If you look just up the hill here, we've got the fig trees. Okay, they might not look like much, they might look like little skeletons sitting there. But come fruiting season, they are very, very productive trees. All of the fig products that Bernie sells, all those figs have come off those couple of lonely trees just there. Okay, so he's actually going to look at putting in, I think it's about another 100 fig trees, because it seems to be an incredibly popular product at the moment, the old fig jam and the fresh figs. So he is going to look into branching and putting in a few more trees for that. But those couple of trees there have sustained his fig jam for many, many, many years. So they might not look like much, but they are amazing trees. So we might head up to the shed now, and I'll explain to you the packing process. Can I ask you about the wild olives? That's the ones right here. This is them here. So a wild olive, that's those tiny little ones that you see in the fancy restaurants on your pizza. They are very, very tiny, very painful to have to pick. Yeah, so the bigger ones on the trees, they get a shaking machine in and it'll shake and they'll all fall down. But with these wild ones, they're so small they'll fall through the nets. So a lot of times we have to hand pick them, and it is very time consuming, very finicky. But yeah, that's this row here. If you wanted to throughout the day, you're welcome to walk through the entire grove. At the top of the hill up there, you'll actually find all the other different types of olive trees that he has here on the property. Okay.
With picking them, think of an upside down umbrella that wraps around the base of the trunk, and then we grab it's like a extension with some fingers on it that vibrate really quick. And we literally stand here and rake down the tree with these little fingers just vibrating really quick, and they just all shake down into the tree and catch in the bottom of the upside down umbrella, but it has a little chute that goes into a bucket. So we just keep doing that. They keep falling down, keep changing the buckets out, but the little ones are extremely hard. Like Jodie, sometimes it's just got to be done the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
And it's time-consuming.
Ladders and
But the little ones are small but mighty. They've got a beautiful punch and flavour.
Sorting packing shed. The farm picks once a week, packs them up and sends them off the next day. So here the pickers will actually hand sort each fruit. Anything that's got a spot, doesn't look great, isn't a fantastic line, it goes into the dumper basket. So they pour the fruit in, well, hoping to get many in. If you should this thing off that, darling, that is a moving machine there. Alright, So this machine here is actually an old potato washer, and it works brilliantly. So what happens is they're sorted by the human, and then they go up this belt here and they get washed. This is the water here. They come up onto the second belt, and the human adds a shellac.
Could never say that word.
Now this shellac here, unlike when you go to Coles and Woolworths, you'll often find they've added chemicals to the outside of their produce because they store them. This is just a shine. It actually has no preservatives, will not keep it longer. It just makes it look pretty. It is a natural product, so it won't affect the fruit at all, but it does make them look really pretty and shiny. So a few drops of that, and the shine starts. Okay, so with the Water Cress Creek limes, Bernie supplies them to the majority of the restaurants and bars in Brisbane City. So if you're ever at Cloudlands or any of the places around there and you grab a drink, it will be a Water Cress Creek lime. He also supplies to a couple of the Ipswich pubs and clubs as well.
The Rusty Nail and the one Prince.
Yeah, Prince Albert, yeah. So with the limes, depending on where they're going, will be a different size. So the restaurants and the cooks, they prefer to have the larger size limes, whereas if you go into a pub or a bar, they want to have the little ones that can actually stick in the top of your Corona bottle. Okay, so depending on where they're heading will be the size which we're sending out. Okay, Bernie sells them in the 10 kilo boxes. He doesn't send them off to the farmers market like big producers will do. The money's just not there. Selling direct to the pubs and clubs is more lucrative than actually taking them to the markets and them being wholesale. Okay, so I'll just give you an example of how this machine works. I'm just going to jump above your head here, darling, sorry.
Sorter. That blue belt at the back is the sorter, so that will sort from small to large via a channel that opens up.
Okay, so this is where the process gets a little bit complicated. So we've got our 10 kilo boxes. Then we have to get some really high-tech equipment to place the limes into the boxes. Here we use a dustpan brush. So it's very high-tech, but it works, whatever works. So the guys just scoop them in, they will weigh the boxes. Usually we like to go about to 11 kilos just to make sure everyone's getting their money's worth. We also, if we're coming across any spoiled ones or anything, we do a second check before they go in the boxes. We make sure we're always looking at getting that best product out to those businesses. Now hand over to Anthony to talk about his juicing.
So during COVID, everyone else in the world shut down, including pubs and clubs. So we had to stop selling because no one was buying. That required us to think about the trees because when COVID hit, the trees didn't stop growing. So what do? Well, did a little bit of research and came up with juice. So this is 100% pure concentrated lime juice, squeezed right here from the juicing machine. So we got a bunch of freezers full of lime juice. Pubs and clubs love this, and restaurants, because it is already juiced. These get poured into kegs and they make margaritas on tap. Restaurants like Indian restaurants love this because it's a strong, fragrant juice and they can add it to all their meals. So it's just a very convenient way for restaurants to utilise our product, and it's a very convenient way for us to minimise our wastage, because all these green, yellow limes that don't look as pretty when you buy them in the shops because you want the green, pretty lime. These are packed full of juice. So these are your best limes to make all your cordials out of because you get your most yield out of one of these. And the flavour, I believe, I can't pick it, but supposedly these are a tad sweeter. When these pop in that machine, the juice comes flying out because these are packed full of juice. We now sell this more often. It's almost becoming a bigger product for us because it's just so much more convenient for the pubs and clubs. So our freezers are filling up. Our trees are happy because they're not seeing their fruit go to waste. Life's good.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today on our tour. If there's any questions, you can hang around and ask me or Anthony any questions. But thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.